By the end of this video, you will learn how to deploy team collaboration platforms such as Microsoft Teams or Slack on Kubernetes cluster using Terraform, Ansible, and AWS Cloud. Additionally, you will learn how to set up Kubernetes Dashboard, NGINX server, SSL certificate, and more. For this demonstration, we will be using Rocket Chat as an open source platform. Suppose your client has asked for a team collaboration platform to be set up on their own cloud server for security and privacy reasons. To make this happen, we will go through several steps. First, we will use Cloud9 service, which you can think of as your own laptop. Then we will use Terraform to create our virtual server and use Ansible to configure them. Once the Kubernetes cluster is set up, we will deploy and launch our application. Okay, let's get started by creating our Cloud9 environment. Make sure to choose an EC2 instance that is powerful enough and then select Ubuntu as the operating system. You can then click create and wait for the Cloud9 service to be created. This can take a few minutes. We will be using our repository on GitHub, so take some time to familiarize yourself with it, as you will need to adapt it to your parameters such as region settings and other parameters. For example, for some file for Terraform or Ansible, you will need to update your private key. But if you don't have one, you can create a private key using key pair service in AWS. So to begin, let's create our key pair and clone the repository. The process to create a private key is very simple. In our case, we call our key as my private key. Then we select the right format and create the key. Don't forget to download this key and then put it in our development folder. Be sure to place it in the correct folder location. We start by cloning our repository and then replace the key by the new one. And later, we're gonna give this key the right permissions using some command in terminal. For now, we can check that initially we won't have any virtual server except the one attached to the Cloud9 servers. So now we can open the terminal in the Terraform folder and replace our private key name, then type the command to launch our server. This process may take few minutes, but once it's done, you will have the public IP address of your virtual server, and then you can verify this in the EC2 dashboard. Don't forget to update your key name. Also, you will probably need to update your region name and other parameters. Terraform is user-friendly, so in case in error, it will be easy to fix them. So first, we're gonna use Terraform unit, then Terraform validate, plan, and finally, we can do Terraform apply. And this process may take few minutes, but once it's done, you can check this on EC2 dashboard. As you can see here, we have 3 IP addresses and for every server. The first server will be our control node or our master node in our Kubernetes cluster. Both server, the second one and the third one will be our worker node. All the server has public IP address. Okay, so now that we have our 3 servers created, we can start configuring them using Ansible via SSH command using their public IP addresses and the private key. To test the connectivity for each server, simply copy and paste the command and change only the IP address. It's very important to go step by step and make sure that the servers are really created and they are functional. Of course, you can copy paste and to avoid wasting time writing very long commands. Of course, you will need to modify the host file and replace the IP addresses with the correct ones. The first IP address will be for the control node on the Kubernetes cluster, and according to the role file, it will install and set up specific configuration. The second and the third server will play the role of worker node. Ansible can make the difference between them, and thanks to the host file, he can install some program on the control node and other programs in the worker node. So first, make sure to install Ansible if it is not already installed. Then run the command Ansible playbook and don't forget to give the right permissions for your private key. Keep in mind that our server are created via Terraform using our private key. This is a security issue, so we need to set up the right permissions for this key. The process is quite simple, but it takes some time as it will install Kubernetes tools on each server and set up the right configuration. For more details, you can consult the playbook files in the role folder, and actually we use bash script file to automate the installation process. So if you want to test only the installation process, you can go ahead and copy and paste only the bash script and test it on another server. Of course, initially you can check if we have already Kubernetes tools installed. Of course, we don't have one, so Ansible will install the necessary tools according to this bash script. Take your time to read carefully this script. Okay, so now we can check if Ansible installed properly the Kubernetes tools by running the command kubectl version, and yes, it's running successfully. That's great. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have our control node server set up correctly, we can check again if all Kubernetes tools are installed properly, and of course, mainly we can check if our cluster is running correctly. So feel free to also test other commands, consult the documentation of Kubernetes, test command like getting the node, getting pods, so don't hesitate to test every command that may be necessary for further steps. So initially we have only one node in our cluster, so we will need to join the other nodes. To do that, we will create the join command and copy this command and run it on the other servers. So we will wait then a few minutes and you will see two servers appear in the cluster and ready to use. Of course, you may also notice that we already have NGINX server set up by default on the control node.